Thank you so much, George. So welcome everyone, wherever you might be. As George said, it would be really nice if you wish, if you could come in on the chat bar and say your name, say your location, and say something that sustains you. So my name is Norman. I'm based in North London, and something that sustains me, something I did a little earlier before the session, was hugging a tree. So maybe it's something as simple as hugging a tree. Maybe it's talking with a good friend. Maybe it's seeing the sky. Maybe it's connecting to the earth. Maybe it's having a cup of tea. So this is a suggestion as part of creating this connection, these communities, that you come in and say name, location, and something that sustains you. So as George was saying, what we're going to be doing is we'll do some looking at how we sit in meditation, or various postures for meditation. We'll be doing some meditation practice, and we'll also have space for questions. I want to really emphasize 2 points that I think are crucial. And the first of those points is that we are all unique beings. We're all unique beings. And I'll talk more about that in the session. And the second is about inclusivity, including everyone. So whether you too are in London, or maybe you're the other side of the Atlantic, or somewhere in Europe, maybe you're right here, right now, or maybe you're watching the recorded version of this, inclusivity is incredibly important. And for me, those two approaches about honoring uniqueness and realizing the importance of inclusivity, this is an essential platform for what we're doing. So bearing that in mind, what I was going to suggest is you come to standing. However, maybe for some of you, this is not going to work. So maybe that's because of the space you're in, maybe because that's how your body is. So if standing does not work for your body, you're most welcome to stay sitting. You can be sitting in a chair, you can be sitting on the ground, or you come to standing. So remembering uniqueness and inclusivity. So I'm just giving a couple of examples of uniqueness then, because certainly for a few people, standing will not be helpful for your body. So in which case you stay sitting. There was a Sufi poet. So as many of you all know, the Sufis are the mystical element of Islam. Hafiz. And I'm slightly paraphrasing what he wrote. So Hafiz was something like 13th century. And he said something like, I wish we could see when we're lonely or in darkness. So that's a crucial line just there. When, not if, when we're lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of our own being. So there's a lot of suffering and sorrow in this world. And it can be easy to be depleted and overwhelmed by all that's going on. In my view, we need to turn towards what's going on. Yet at the same time, those words from Hafiz can be so helpful for reminding us the astonishing light of our own being. So whether you're sitting or whether you're standing, let's just do a little bit of kind of shaking, if you wish. I know plenty of you know this, but this is what animals will do when they've been, say, frightened, upset, had a fight. They shake. They shake it off. So whatever time zone you're in, just seeing if you can almost like shake off what has been happening for you, which might be you've had a wonderful day, or might mean you're feeling really done in by life. So just a few more moments, just shaking, shaking. And then gradually slow this down, slow this down, slow this down. Come back to standing, as long as this works for you. And then arranging yourself in a way that supports your body. So for me personally, my feet, what feels most comfortable for me is my feet are slightly wider than my hips. I know other people, their preference is for the heels to be almost like directly below the hips. If you're kind of wondering what's the kind of shape of your hips on the ground, something you can do just to find out the approximate alignment of your hips is if you bring your feet together and then turn one foot out, that's approximately where your hips are, approximately. And then initially, just allowing your arms to hang alongside your body. So this can be another example of uniqueness. For me personally, my arms hang some distance away from my body. Other people, their arms will naturally be almost like drawing into the center. So simply just now allowing your arms to hang loosely beside you, whether they're drawing towards center or whether they're drawing away from the body. There are four, we might describe them as poses of meditation. This is one of them, standing. Remembering you do not have to stand. If standing feels uncomfortable for you, please sit down. Another pose of meditation, which I'm sure many of you have done, personally I'm a big fan of, is walking meditation. Walking meditation does not have to be incredibly slow, though it can be incredibly slow. The third pose of meditation is sitting. So we'll be doing that in a while. The fourth pose of meditation, which is sometimes described as the most advanced or the most challenging pose, is lying down. Because, and this is certainly true for myself, lying down and my next sensation is sleep. So that's why it's a very advanced form of meditation. So in this session, we'll be looking at two of those four poses, standing and sitting. So from here, maybe you might like to keep the arms just hanging loosely down by your side. Maybe some of you might like to bring the hand around the lower abdomen. I've also seen sometimes some people do something like this, where they've interlaced their fingers and they've placed their hands over their chest. So do what feels most helpful for your body right now. So a choice of three options, and you can do other things as well, but whether the arms hanging loosely down by your side, hands below the abdomen, maybe the fingers interlacing around the chest. And then with your eyes, these are your eyes. So many circumstances influence our practice. So as one simple example, if you're here and your energy levels are particularly low, then closing your eyes might mean you feel sleepy and drowsy, in which case, keep your eyes open. I know that sometimes for some people, closing eyes and then there's increasing anxiety, discomfort, emotional discomfort, maybe physical discomfort. If that might be true for you, keep your eyes open. If you've decided to keep your eyes open, could you have an approach of quietening your eyes? So instead of the gaze wandering, it's almost like a softening of eyes, a slight hooding of the eyes. So whether the eyes are open or closed, whether you have your arms along by your side, whether you've decided to sit down, whether you have your hands below your abdomen or you have your hands on your chest. Just now, see if you can find the feeling of your feet on the floor. Maybe you might notice there's a bit more weight around the balls of the toes and the heels, or the other way around. Maybe you might be noticing it's like some vibrating sensations through the feet. Or maybe you might not be noticing anything. Just now, feeling of feet on floor, being curious as to what you might feel. So rather than repeating previous experiences, for those of you who've done standing meditation before, rather than that thought, if only I did ABC, very much here, feeling of feet on floor. Being curious about that feeling. Perhaps you're noticing a little bit more weight around the outer edges of the feet, or the inner edges of the feet. And then through this almost like grounding, literal grounding, feet to floor, taking a time, gradually, it's almost like scanning your awareness from the feet into your lower legs. So there's the back of the legs, the front, the shins. around the knees. And then as you become aware of your knees, I know for some people, this awareness does not happen. That could be true for you. Just keep looking, keep exploring, paying attention. For those being aware of knees, see if you can very slightly soften the knees. There can be a common tendency of like locking legs. See if you can very slightly soften these. And then bring your awareness into your thighs, the back of the thighs, front of the thighs. And then drawing that awareness into the center of the body, the groin, the hips, the buttocks. And then just gradually bring your awareness into your upper body. So there's the abdomen. For those with their hands on the abdomen, that can be a way of really feeling that area. Maybe you might be noticing movement of the abdomen with your breathing as one example. Being aware of your back. So there's the lower back. Almost like seeing if you can feel the back's natural curves. Mid and upper back, shoulder blades. And then bring your awareness into your chest. Again, like the abdomen, maybe you're noticing chest moving with breath. And then gradually taking your awareness down your arms. So there's the upper arms, around the elbows. So like with the knees, see if you can soften. So as well as awareness, there's an approach of softness rather than trying to be rigid, soften. Bring that awareness into the forearms. And then taking some moments, just being aware of your hands. What might you notice around your hands with their opposable thumbs and four fingers on each hand? I know we have different kinds of hands. Just see if you can notice what you might be feeling around your hands. And then gradually sliding that awareness from the hands, up the arms to the shoulders, being aware of your throat, the back of your neck, being aware of your face, and again, explore that softening. And one of the ways we can encourage that is, maybe you might like to do this, just placing your tongue in between the upper and lower jaw. Actually feeling your teeth with your tongue. Possibly doing a couple of circuits, feeling teeth with tongue, so face is soft. And then softening your tongue. Eventually, bring your awareness to the crown of your head. Just see what you might notice, feel, experience around the crown of your head? Inevitably, we get distracted. We all have the ability to bring our minds back. So bring your awareness to the crown of your head, just being curious. What sensations might you notice around the crown of your head? So whatever floor you might be on. So personally, I'm on the second floor, whichever time zone you're in, whether this is evening or morning, afternoon. An image I'm particularly fond of is our bodies as a bridge between earth and sky. So we spent those moments feeling, remember the feeling of the feet on the floor. And then gradually we drew our awareness through our bodies up to the crown of our head. So our bodies as these bridges. And recalling those words from the feast. This can be a way of helping us to connect to the astonishing light. So if this might feel comfortable for you, you could bring your hands together so the palms are pressing. You might bring your thumbs towards the center of your chest. You might soften your head towards your heart, almost like a symbol of head connecting to heart. And then from here, gradually, taking your time, let's come to sitting. We just spent about 20 minutes standing. So coming to sitting, for those of you who are already sitting, just stay sitting. So remembering uniqueness and inclusivity. We can get enlightened sitting in a chair. We can get enlightened sitting in lotus. They are equal. It's about what will be best for your body. So definitely feel free to sit in a chair. I wanted to show you something that some of you will be familiar with, meditation bench. If you're unfamiliar with a meditation bench, they can be so helpful for back and knee issues, as an example. So let me just very briefly model this bench. So with a meditation bench, one point is to think about having your feet, say, rather than having your feet extending back. So seeing my feet, they're just hanging over the edge of the cushion. And then with the bench, I bring my hands to the legs. So this puts my hips into what you might describe as neutral. So less pressure on the knees and can be really good for the back. I've heard people describe sitting in meditation benches as game changers, which is not a word I would use. And when someone uses that kind of word, I feel it's more impactful. So I personally think a meditation bench can be a very good investment. And then what I wanted to show you was sitting in internal rotation hips. So remember, sitting on the bench, and I talked about hips being in neutral. So internal rotation. So I've just grabbed a couple of yoga blocks. You can also use cushions, of course, or books. In internal rotation, the feet are outside the hips. The feet are pointing directly back. Remembering that point I said with the meditation bench, sometimes it can be good, often it can be good to have the feet like slightly, so there's less of an angle into the feet. Something else that can be helpful for feet, because sitting this way, a strong stretch into the ankles. So maybe rolling up a towel, a sock, something like that. What this does is it gives support and reduces the angle. So I'm sitting on 2 blocks. You can sit on as many blocks as you like. 3, 4 blocks, as many blocks as you like, because this is about making sure you're comfortable. When you're sitting in this posture, very important, no discomfort in knees nor in ankles. And sometimes we can emphasize knees and neglect ankles. So if this causes you any discomfort in a knee or an ankle, I'd strongly recommend you to adjust what you're doing, such as I've already mentioned about the ankles. And then in this posture, not necessarily for everyone, because there are exceptions to every rule, we might say, but nearly everyone can benefit from having some support for the hands, like a cushion, yoga block, because by having some support for the hands, this means that the arms are being supported rather than like dragging our way forward. So slowly, 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 instead of sitting up, we're starting to go into that, we could call it the slouch shape. So something supporting the hands, because what's true for this posture, and also for the next posture we'll be looking at, and also true for sitting in a chair, also true for sitting in a meditation bench, is the upper body has a feeling of upwardness and openness. With our heads, it's, remember when we were standing, looking for that sensations around the crown of our head. Maybe you might imagine there's a thread from the crown of your head just drawing you up. So the upper body, open, supported, perhaps that thread drawing you up. Remembering also the exercise we did when we were standing with the tongue in between the upper and lower jaw. So there's that softness. Some people are constructed, physically constructed, to sit like this. So if that might be true for you, if you're in a posture like this, feel free to stay. Otherwise, I was going to show you the external rotation. So if you wish, coming out of that pose, and then external rotation, crossing your legs. So when we cross our legs, this puts our hips into external rotation. When we fold our legs back, that puts our hips into internal rotation. Some people are built to internally rotate. Some people are built to externally rotate. They're both equal. It's not that sitting like this or sitting like this is better than sitting like this or sitting in a chair. All the options are equal. So for those with the legs crossed, something that can be really helpful, a couple of examples, if you have knee issues, And also, if you have a lot of mobility in your body, this is a blanket. Of course, you can use towels. Sometimes putting this under the cross of your legs can give you support. And then taking another blanket and see what I'm doing here? Got the blanket and I'm literally tucking myself in. Support. We all need support. So then there's almost like a being held together. So remember those two specific examples I suggested could find this very useful. Knee issues, lots of mobility in your body, being held together. Another example of external rotation in the hips is doing this. So I've got heel to heel. So here's my groin, heel to heel in line like this. Some people will never do something like this, or alternatively, they try and do something like this, and the next stop is accident and emergency, or the osteopath, or knee surgery. These are not good. So for you, it's like, what's going to best support my body? I know some people sit like this in half lotus. For many people, doing this is a big strain into the ankle. And what you might find, if you do half lotus a lot, some of you could call this half padmasana, if you do this a lot, there might be a weakening of your ankle. So doing something like this is less stretch into the ankles. And then, for those of you who have a regular sitting practice, I think a helpful approach is changing what you do. Personally, this is my default. Left foot and then right foot, heel to heel. This is what I find most comfortable. So then sometimes I'm going to bring my right foot in and then my left foot. And then sometimes I'm going to fold my legs back. So this internal rotation of the hips. Sometimes I definitely sit in a chair. And sometimes I use a meditation bench. I think this is healthy for our bodies. So for those of you who might be less familiar with a meditation practice, just focus on what is going to be most comfortable for you. That's the priority right now. Finding your base, ensuring that your base gives you a feeling of stability. And then after a while, start exploring doing things slightly differently. Another example can be doing something like this. Let me just come into profile so you can see me more clearly. Bolster below the hips. So you maybe have some support below your back. This is a legitimate way to sit, supported. For those of you who are sitting with the legs crossed, again, let me just stay in profile so you can see me more clearly. Practical point, avoid the knees being higher than your hips. If your knees are higher than your hips, what will be happening, there'll be increasing tension in your thighs, and you'll also, I'm exaggerating this slightly, you kind of get the sense the back is collapsing. So losing this openness of the upper body. So the knees are either on the same line as the hips or slightly below the hips. So go through your own checklist. What is going to work most well for your body? Sitting in a chair, using a meditation bench, legs folded back, the internal rotation. legs in front, using blankets, doing what's going to work most well for your body. And using this as a way of applying attention. This is what we're doing. We're aspiring to be more attentive. And so many of us, certainly true for me, swimming in these seas of distractions, all these shining screens, all these stimulations drawing us away from ourselves. So it's almost like the first few moments of a sit, in some ways, are the most important moments. It's like you're exercising attention. So all of you, exercise attention so you find a seat that supports your body. So let go of the imagery, let go of the rupas, the statues. They're statues. We're not statues. We're living, breathing human beings. Each of us is unique. I know very well from my own experience what can be wonderful for one person is a complete disaster for another person. So what seat is going to support you? We're going to be sitting for maybe about 15, 20 minutes. What seat is going to support you? And having eventually found your seat that's going to support you, give yourself permission, if necessary, to move. So it's not about being locked down. It's not about the rigidity. You must stay still. Let's soften a little bit. So as we sit, there will be differing physical sensations. Sometimes those sensations will dissipate. Sometimes those sensations will intensify. I sometimes think, why is it often when I'm sitting that I begin to have an itch on my face? So we could perhaps simply observe the itch. We can observe the sensations. However, if the sensations are increasing in intensity, if you're experiencing sensations, say, in knees or ankles, my belief is you need to move. If you decide to move, being aware of how you move, noticing, how do I move my body? And continuing with that awareness as you come back to finding a seat where you can be reasonably still. So with our eyes, the same as when we were standing, they are your eyes. Some traditions suggest eyes closed. Some traditions suggest eyes open. What works well for you? If you're feeling quite high energy, maybe closing the eyes could be helpful. If you're feeling very low energy, maybe keeping the eyes open would be helpful. What works well for you? So then there's this sense of being guided by our inner teacher. And of course, we are all inspired by teaching, external teachers, teachings. and being guided by our own inner teacher. So having established your seat, having decided what you wish to do with your eyes, becoming aware of your breath. So letting go of manipulations, letting go of control, just simply being aware of your breath. And each time you breathe out, saying in your language, whichever, I know there are different languages here, just saying the word exhale. Just at the end of your breathing out, just noting that with the word exhale. Inevitably, the mind wanders. Maybe there's drowsiness. Maybe you've drifted into tomorrow. Coming back, simply sitting, saying in your language the word exhale at the end of your out breath. So changing focus. Now marking the beginning of the in-breath. So marking that with the word inhale in your own language, just as you begin the in-breath, noting, marking, inhale. Keep bringing the mind back, noting inhale, the beginning of the in-breath. Changing focus, dropping the labels, inhale and exhale. Just being aware of your body, your whole body breathing. Remember when I was standing and I mentioned maybe you're feeling the breath in your abdomen, your chest, just seeing if you can feel the feeling, your whole body breathing. The mind inevitably wanders. This is normal. Coming back. This is possible. Simply sitting, being aware of the whole body breathing. Changing focus. Now notice where you feel the breath most in your body, almost like the first touch of breath in your body. Maybe your throat. Often people feel the breath most in the chest, perhaps around the tip of the nose, into the nose. And that is the anchor. That place where you feel the breath most in your body. And sometimes it can be highly elusive. Just keep looking. This curiosity. And sometimes it can be brightly present. And so then stay with that experience. Awareness of where you feel breath most in your body. Bring the mind back, that place where you might feel breath most in your body. from here. If this might be comfortable for you, you could bring the palms to press, or maybe you rest your hands on your lower abdomen or your chest or wherever you prefer. You could be drawing yet again that chin towards your chest. So in my own practice, I recite this piece from a Tibetan teacher, Sangha, written in about the 1400s. It begins, "This human birth is precious, an opportunity to awaken. But this body is impermanent. Ready or not, one day I shall die. So this life I must know as the tiny splash of a raindrop, a thing of beauty that disappears even as it comes into being. The karma I create shapes the course of my life, but however I act, life has inevitable difficulties. No one can control it all. Only the Dharma can free me and others from suffering forever. Therefore, I recall my heart's longing for freedom and resolve to make use of every day and night to realize it." So if your eyes are closed, maybe raising the eyelids, taking your time in the kind of transition. If you've raised your hands, lowering the hands. So in a few moments, the floor will be open for questions. I just want to come back and emphasize the crucial importance of our uniqueness and inclusivity, and as practitioners making what we do doable, sustainable. So less about, well, this is what I should do, or someone told me to do that. What's going to work most well for us? So please, questions. So George is going to be in charge of the chat bar, or as he mentioned, if you want to kind of raise a hand and give us a wave, and I'll do my best to be helpful. Over to you. Any questions, George?
Just Shelley asking if you can put a link, if I can put a link to that prayer that you just recited.
Yes. Or Shelley, if you email me through my website. So my website is imaginatively called Yoga with Norman. So if you email me, I can actually send you a physical copy. So let me just show you the physical copy of that. It's got a picture of mine and my partner's cat. And the cat's name is, well, his full name is Lord Vajra Rinpoche the Brave. My partner sometimes calls him HH, or we call him Vajra for short. So he's saying, wake up. And then on the back, there's that piece from Tsongkhapa. And I was going to mention also, as George said about dana, some of you will be familiar with the paramitas, which might be called a guidance for skillful living within Buddhism. And there are different versions of the paramitas. The version that I'm familiar with, the first of the paramitas is dana, which is generosity. And as George said, you know, these events only happen because of the generous support of everyone attending, which does not mean you must give anything, because I think it's so important. We're all in different circumstances, but they're based on our generosity. Any other questions, George? Anything that's popped up?
No, not yet. Everyone's very quiet and tranquil.
Oh, there is. Oh, someone's. Oh, that's a clap. Thank you, Saki.
No, I did have a question. I meant to do that. Yeah. I was just so I naturally am more towards a kind of yoga kind of movement, mindfulness, but that will always come naturally to me. Every morning I'll want to do that. And you know, I've also got a sitting practice, but that takes more discipline to sit. And I was just wondering, from perspective of one's kind of spiritual or personal development, and what do you think we get out of each thing, each situation?
Well, I think they're both incredibly important. And what you might have found some decades ago, that within meditation circles, there wasn't emphasis on movement. And what people have learned over time is the importance of movement. So rather than like endless sitting, which could actually be damaging for your body, then they're bringing, whether it's yoga, whether it's Tai Chi, Qigong, lots of different ways we can move our bodies. I would tend to kind of see them joining together. And as I'm sure you know, Saki, we can be so good at putting things in separate boxes.
Mm.
And certainly mindful movement, walking meditation. You know, we don't have to be still to be mindful, of course not. So for me personally, what I notice, and so I think this can be a really good reflection, Saki, of like how have things changed for you over time. So for me personally, over time, so I was initially introduced to yoga. I did a lot of yoga over a long period of time. And then kind of meditation became more important. And so in a way, there's a kind of graph of like sitting meditation becoming more important and the movement becoming a little less important. But I still very much move and I think it is crucial. What about yourself?
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of the way I do it. That's what's happened to me. I had much more of a yoga practice, but as I've developed more of a sitting practice, yeah, I do find much more kind of awarenesses arising in a sitting practice. And as a result, I think my yoga practice has become more mindful because I'm much more aware of where my mind is when I'm moving and how nice it is that my mind is settled with my moving body.
Yeah.
It was also interesting today to do the standing meditation because I've never been led through it in quite a precise way. So that might be a kind of an integration almost of both because you're standing, so you're very aware of your body because it's doing something, it's keeping, as it is when we're sitting, but I quite like the feet on the floor feeling of standing and choosing where my hands were going to be. And, that it's not moving, but there's some kind of, it's a bit of both. I don't know. It's something I would be interested to explore and kind of incorporate.
Well, and one of the great things about standing meditation is that when we're waiting for the bus, when we're standing in the queue at Tesco's, and I think, we're living in a time of a lot of difficulty and there's a lot of stuff going on. And so when we get more grounded, we can perhaps have a little bit more wisdom in how we deal with the difficulties. So literally getting grounded by like being aware of of our feet on the floor.
Yeah, I
Thank
agree.
you.
I think you might have sorry for people, lots of questions, but yeah, I'll move on. Thank you. You're a good talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Jane. Do you want to ask a question?
On. Guess I'm not getting on. Sorry, I'm not on the screen, but hello everyone, and thank you. I don't really have a question. I just want to add something that I think is fascinating. I've been meditating all my life, and I started practicing Qigong, a meditative type of Qigong called Qilao Qigong. And I will say, I think for many people, the movements we do in Qigong are the most meditative forms you can imagine, because people have the chatter going on, but when you're doing Qigong, you can't chatter. So you're really in a meditative state without the chatter. So it's very helpful for people that I work with. I'm a psychotherapist that are trauma survivors or anything like that, so that it doesn't get too overwhelming, but it's very helpful. And what I was thinking about was that when you've been meditating all your life, it's less about how, I guess, like you said, what works for me is different than what works for someone else. There's no rigid thing. We just really got to go with the flow and not be looking at it as, oh, it's going to do this for me. I mean, it's like, God, we have got to get rid of goals and just live in the moment and enjoy the process and not expect any enlightenment to happen or whatever. I think we get really caught up in this being productive and even being productive as a meditator. So yeah. So just, yeah, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, Jane, thank you for saying that, because for at least a few people, sitting still in meditation is not a good idea. And actually, as one example, if someone's got like high levels of depression, it'd be much better for them to do like a Qigong movement in my view, than to sit still.
Yeah. And walking meditations or meditation, like, this is why I love John Kabat-Zinn, because it's not, let's see, something you set aside as, oh, I'm going to do this now. It's while you're washing the dishes. It's while every moment we can be in that state and that state of awareness. Most of my clients I have listen to more audio type visualizations that help them have something to follow. One I love called Contact Points, which is a grounding one, centering, really getting in touch with your feet being in the ground and your body being supported by the chair. But I'm going to stop because you've got others, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you, Jane. So, Kimberly, you raised a hand. Hello, Kimberly.
Yes, aloha. Thank you so much. From this, I'm joining you from Honolulu today, and I really appreciate the reminders for all of the sitting positions, standing position, every position. Not for everybody to run through their history, but it's very interesting today doing this, because I started practicing yoga 30 years ago, but didn't continue completely. But thankfully had a yogi before I ever meditated, talking about position and 24/7 practicing, brushing our teeth, not just leaning forward, but doing the back bend and then going forward, all of this that you said. And I appreciate all of this, and also having practiced Qigong and moving. And what came to me from everything that you and everyone has been sharing, I've been hearing a lot about movement meditation quite recently, thankfully. And the pendulum is swinging in that direction, it seems. And what is so wonderful to me is that it shows trust our intuition of what is right for our physical being, mental being, in Italian they say anima, everything, right? Everything in all of it, because it makes so much sense. It didn't make sense years ago when I used to hear sit rigidly, stop, just, and my body, I was like, wow, I didn't think of failure, but oh, I'm having to move my ankles, I must not be good at this. When in fact, I'm a human being who needs to move their ankles, and so anyway, thank you very much for all of this today. It was very enlightening and reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Other questions? George, is there anything in on the chat bar?
No questions, just a comment from Leslie. She says that was my first standing meditation and I loved it. I had to stand with feet wide apart and eyes open to maintain balance. Also had to change my position a few times to stay feeling steady. Hard to believe that was just 3 minutes.
Well, Leslie, we were standing for about 20 minutes. So kind of moving, and I think Standing meditation, as I said earlier, can be, it's a very, what's the word, very portable practice. We can do it wherever we are.
We were standing for 20 minutes.
We were standing for about 20 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, I feel much better now. Thank you.
Yeah, we were standing for about 20 minutes. And some people simply cannot stand that long. And so I've seen people get really quiet, and just something as simple as that, if someone's got low blood pressure, it might not be a good idea for standing for so long. So I think
Right.
always offering options means that it becomes more inclusive, rather than like, what Kimberly was talking about in the past, it'd be very rigid. You must do this, you can't do that. Offering options. Let's make this an inclusive practice.
I loved it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Kimberly, you raised a hand
Sorry,
again.
one other thing I wanted to what you were just saying, the moving and the doing, and what Leslie or Jane, I'm sorry, said about moving meditation. One of my most favorite, deepest, besides Qigong, was also getting on an exercise bike, knowing I'm not gonna fall, like possibly during a walking meditation if I'm air quotes out of it. You know what I mean? In absolute meditation, not having to think about it and moving a body slowly and surely and meditating is absolutely fantastic. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. George, I see
So,
something in the chat.
Norman, yeah, there's a question from Hunter.
Yep.
There are so many different choices of meditation types, and I find myself overwhelmed, freezing or hopping back and forth between them. What do you do to choose what your practice is going to be?
That's a great question, Hunter. And yes, you're right. There are like thousands of different techniques. That the techniques we did in today's session. So the standing one of just simply getting grounded. And of course, you can do that sitting in a chair, simply feeling your feet on the floor and then gradually bring the awareness through your body. That can be a great, in my view, great practice. And then the breathing practice, the awareness of our breath. I think sometimes people overcomplicate things. And as you pointed out, there are so many options, and just simply the number of options can be overwhelming just in themselves. So let's keep things simple. Keep things simple and just sit and breathe and be aware of your breath. And of course, you'll get distracted. You'll think, what do I need to do next week? Or we go backwards, all this stuff. That's my suggestion. Keep it simple. Anything else, George?
No more questions for the time being. No more comments. Here's one new message. Let me see. So just Hunter, thanking you for your answer.
I think keeping things simple is a good approach. Particularly we have all this kind of information, all this knowledge, all these ideas, and sometimes that in itself is like there's too much choice. We're in the supermarket and we're faced by like 300 biscuits, different varieties of biscuits, but essentially they're all the same. And so we can be like almost like having a panic attack in front of the biscuits and just focus on our breath, feel our feet on the floor. That's a great start.
Nothing new.
Should we say goodbye?
Well, if no one else has no more questions or comments, I'm happy to let people say goodbye. I don't know if you have a specific way, if you want to say something in specific, Norman.
I was going to say, one of the things I love about online teaching, and you can't do this in person. I tried doing this in person when I went back to in-person teaching after the pandemic, is we can all do jazz hands. But only if you want to do jazz hands. So really, thank you so much for being here. Definitely feel free to ask questions either through Sangha, Sunday Sangha, contact my website. May our paths continue to connect. Good luck with your practicing.
Thank you, Norman.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Can
much,
you
Norman.
open your mic and say goodbye in your own language?
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Sergio.
Thanks, Norman.
Thank you. Take care.
Aloha. Ciao, 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 ciao.
Take care. Goodbye. See you.
谢谢，再见。
See you. Take care. Bye bye.